Shadow of Mordor released in 2014, and everyone agreed it was very fun to stab orcs in the face. The game's now patented nemesis system allowed orcs that killed you to come back with more flair and panache. Today we're putting this system to the test. What happens if you die 100 times on purpose? How will this affect the hierarchy in Mordor? Or the hierarchy? This is Talion, and he is immortal because his wife is dead. Just when you think Talion is dead, he comes back to life as a shadow of his former self, just like this channel. Talion's first death out of 100 came from a nobody called Hura. With a world of near infinite possibilities available to him, Hura became a Bloodborne NPC. Don't let Hura's short stature fool you, he was more than capable of taking names. None of these orcs are on his side. He still won. Another fascinating orc we encountered was called Ratanak Brighteyes, whose parents were presumably big fans of Watership Down. Ratanak was good at everything. He had a beautiful way with words.
I'm in charge here. Follow or die!
He had absolutely no respect for content creators.
Is this some kind of test to see how many times you can die?
Ratanak also liked to give people affectionate nicknames.
Maggots! Maxville! Are you ready to join a real army, maggots?
He was also not afraid to tell you the truth, even if it would hurt your feelings.
What is wrong with you? Why must you keep coming back? You lose every time!
Sadly, the main lesson we learned from Ratanak was about the transience of power in Mordor. 1 minute the future's looking bright because your eyes glow, the next minute you've been cut down by some random orc who apparently was called Kaka. I don't do toilet humour on this channel, so you'll have to write your own joke for that one. Kaka was just another opportunist tugging on the chain of command, flushing out weakness, and dropping anyone who kept him away from the throne. No matter how you bend and twist it, power in Mordor is all about who can make the biggest splash. Kaka's first move as captain was to find the scariest orc he could and assert dominance. Unfortunately, the first orc he found was too hot-headed, and he beat Kaka so hard that he broke the fourth wall.
I underestimated this time.
After he'd finished running away, Kaka moved on to what he thought was a softer target. Watching Kaka fight was even more embarrassing than that one Christmas where my granddad asked me when I was going to get a proper job. Mosfell the Claw made Kaka look like an absolute clown. Mosfell seemed like he had the potential to be a main player, so we followed his career with interest. Unfortunately, after killing Talion once, he decided to go after Lorm the Endless. On the one hand, this was an unfortunate turn of events. On another occasion, Kaka came close to killing Talion, but was foiled by an unlosable tutorial quicktime event. Shadow of Mordor thought I needed help understanding its key mechanics. Joke's on them, I was failing those quicktime events on purpose. A concept never before seen on YouTube. Thankfully, Hura, the goat, was in the area and showed Kaka how a nemesis was supposed to behave.
Do you know how many times I've killed you? Don't suspect you would. Find a new enemy!
Oh my goodness, you know what that means. It's time for audience participation. Watch the next clip carefully and be ready to answer an impossible question. Wow, what a moment. Here's your question. Why is Talion about to die? Is it A, because Mugrish picked him up and slammed him into the ground? Or is it B, Kaka, off-screen, fired a poisoned bolt into Talion's thigh about a second before he got slammed into the ground, therefore making the kill technically belong to Kaka? You have 2 minutes to leave your answer in the comments. Moving on, the answer's B. It was the happiest moment of Kaka's life. He ricocheted a crossbow bolt into Talion and delivered a solid 5 out of 10 one-liner.
Your odds get worse every time you face me.
Kaka's celebrations were cut short, however, when he was killed off-screen by Ugu the Merciful. I'm sorry that we have to introduce another key character, but if you've not been taking notes, that says more about you than it does about me, okay?
I'm strong, you're weak! Bye-bye!
While Ugu always felt that it was beneath him to kill Talion, he had no qualms about capital punishment or getting into lethal fights with other orcs. Here's a clip of Ugu picking a fight with an opponent so stupid that he licked his own poisoned sword. This is the equivalent of me picking a fight with a toddler who's just licked its own poisoned sword. To understand the story of Ugu, however, we need to understand the story of Brog. We first met Brog when he was a nobody and watched as he made fire his whole personality. Like firefighters or chefs. Brog had many weaknesses, one of which was he didn't understand how to use apostrophes.
Whose turn is it to be stabbed?
Whose turn is it to be stabbed? One thing we should remember about Brog is that he never failed to back down from a fight.
Do you like my little surprise attack, sweet? Not bloody likely. Run!
Despite Brog's mediocrity at both fighting and grammar, he decided to start a feud with Ugu the Merciful. Here's a quick montage to show how that went.
This is Shrog! We will meet again, and I will have my revenge!
After the duel, Talion dropped down to see if Ugu wanted to kill him as a reward, but Ugu decided not to.
Bye-bye!
Luckily, Hura, the goat, was in the area and he was happy to finish the job. In a desperate attempt to save face, Brog challenged Ugu to a rematch. Unfortunately, it didn't go well for him and he died, which is the opposite of saving face, really. As a palate cleanser to Brog's relentless mediocrity, let's look at some of the other orcs we encountered. A chance encounter with Lapbag gave us an insight into orcish literature.
Shall I say goodbye when you fall and die after I pluck out your eye?
Here's another example of Lapbag's poetry.
Be still, do as I say. I'll recite to you as your life bleeds away.
And here's an encounter which I've saved in my notes under the title Battle of the Linguists.
You'll die, and I'll take your corpse home for playtime. Eat Shrog and die, you Shrog-eating Shrog!
If any of that was lost in translation, it actually means eat shit and die, you shit-eating shit. Some orcs channeled their creativity through their choice of weapon, like Ushbaka, who had a crossbow that shot bombs. His one-liners were somewhat less creative, but who could forget...
Was it a shock, sweetness, to die so quickly?
But we should also consider...
Was it a shock, sweetness, to die so quickly?
Other orcs opted to forsake spoken language entirely. What did he mean by this? Nobody knows. Not even the other orcs.
Enough talk!
At times it was very difficult to keep track of what was going on in Mordor. You'd be running along and all of a sudden some orc captain you'd never met had just been flattened by a Graug. Like, some of us are trying to turn random video game events into a cohesive narrative, my guy. You couldn't at least say hi before you got flattened? Oh, by the way, did you know that if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, absolutely nothing in your life will change? I will receive a brief rush of endorphins and you will receive nothing. The algorithm is a fickle beast which... Hold on, that's Brog! We gotta wrap up the call to action. Brog's back, everybody. Big round of applause for Brog. Brog decided he couldn't be bothered to kill Talion, but thankfully Hura was in the area. Brog had come back to life with a purpose. He was going to claim his revenge on Ugu the Merciful. It was the rematch of the hour. Like 9 orcs had come to watch. Talion had to keep his distance here so as not to interfere, but Brog is the one with the flaming weapon. You'll see him now towards the bottom of the screen. As you can see, Brog seems to have the upper hand here. He's actually getting some really good hits in on Ugu. And then Ugu kills him with one hit. By this point in the process, it felt like the key players were pretty well established. Talion had died over 80 times and we were approaching the end of the challenge. It was becoming increasingly challenging for random orcs to get any kind of title because of one particular orc called Lamlug. Here's Asgrom, for example. He was really excited about killing Talion.
I care not for accolades or ranks I'll get from your death.
Asgrom's career was cut short off-screen by Lamlug before it even began. Then there was Bolg, a plucky young spear thrower with a lot to prove.
The death of a man like you is always rewarded.
But Lamlug once again made it clear that there was no room in the hierarchy. There was this sense of increasingly tragic inevitability to it all. I didn't feel bad for Talion. He's immortal because his wife is dead. But I did feel bad for the orcs who never got to do orc stuff. And for that reason I was delighted when I heard that Lamlug was due to be executed. Talion moved in to get a good look at justice being served, but just before Lamlug was struck down, Talion was spotted distracting all of the orcs. I want you to watch this next clip very carefully. All you need to pay attention to is Lamlug with his hands on his head. How does he die? And more importantly, who killed him?
Didn't I grind you up already?
I'll show you that again in slow motion. I don't really know how it happened, but I do know that he deserved it. Elsewhere in Mordor, Ugu the Merciful was being ambushed by some randoms. As Talion settled in to spectate what was sure to be a masterclass of orcish combat, things seemed different. Ugu had lost his luster. He was going through the motions of combat, but without his nemesis Brog, who was there left to impress? Ultimately, Ugu, a paragon of orcish culture, was undone by the same society that he had dedicated his life to upholding, and round the decay of his merciful wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level dirt of Mordor stretched far away. Lapbag the Rhymer had stopped rhyming.
Better luck next time, my sweet.
Hura had become bored of killing.
Do you know how many times I've killed you? Don't suspect you would. Find a new enemy.
And Brog had become bored of being dead. He was back again. Here he is, back again.
Congratulations! You managed to make murder into monotony.
But then, something beautiful happened. Lapbag was rhyming again.
I will commit your failure to verse. A fitting end for your miserable curse. You're just in time. Take heed. An Uruk's about to bleed.
The story of orcs in Mordor is not a straight line, it's a circle. If you stare at computer simulations of orcs for long enough, you begin to realise that things keep going. The faces change, the names vanish into history, and every orc life has an end. With one exception.
Will you ever learn, maggot? I suspect not.